There he is. And there he is.
Hello, Roman.
Right on.
What's going on, man?
What's up, Sam?
How are you?
Good, man. Thanks
Roman
for having me.
Reigns is here. We were just talking about Anthony. That's why we said there he is, the guy that walked you in. And
Yeah.
how Travis, our producer, has no patience for him. So I hope that he didn't wear you out in the walk-in.
No, he was fine.
There it is.
Yeah.
What did he talk to you about?
What did we talk about? Not too much, actually. We were actually talking about the signs on the bathroom. Yeah, so it was very entertaining.
Is it because they're newer signs? The bathroom is the new construction?
Yeah, he was. Do I even need these?
No.
You don't have to,
Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, for those who can't see, I'm messing with headphones right now. We were talking because I guess the woman had like an electric guitar.
Yeah.
And then the man was a cowboy, clearly.
right.
He had the boots, which I thought that was pretty neat. Like you could get like a Jack Daniel's shot in there or something like that. Like there's some weird like saloon theme.
Right.
But we were just in, I want to say Abu Dhabi or somewhere, in the Middle East or whatever. And their bathroom signs is just the faces of a woman and a man. And the man, it's like a distinct like goatee. It's funny how they did it, just the face, and every man has a goatee, and then the woman is like literally wrapped up. Like it's like
Wow.
it's just like a drawing of that, like kind of like a.
But they don't show the
brief outline.
bodies.
No.
Just
not
faces.
Yeah. Just
And there's no room for mistake.
if you
know
have
exactly
a goatee,
which one you're
you
walking
can go
into.
in there. But those are really the only rules as far as that.
Yeah, you must have been really happy with your facial hair choices when you got there.
I was like, that's my bathroom. That's the bathroom.
How do they
else.
treat you there? Like the Middle East, wrestling is big everywhere. How do they treat you when you go there?
Excellent. You know what I mean? They're very gracious. The hospitality, pretty much everywhere we go, is it's perfect. You know what I mean? Because there's always so much energy. There's always this huge excitement because we get to travel across America and do our domestic touring year round. But there's a lot of places we only get to go once a year or twice a year, if that. So you can definitely tell, and we're about to go, once we get through Mania, we're going into touring season. So, I think we have South Africa, we have Saudi Arabia with
there's a huge show in Saudi
the
Arabia.
greatest battle royal of all time. So that's going to be huge, which I believe is, and hopefully I'm not giving, spoilers here. Breaking news happening now, but I believe it's going to be a huge network special. So,
Wow.
How about Dubai?
I have never done Dubai. I actually, was just thinking from the bathroom story, but I've been to Abu Dhabi 3 times now. So I think Abu Dhabi's an hour away, maybe 2 hours if that. But Dubai would be very cool. I would love to see that city.
How far, ahead do you even think about things? Because like you said, you're like, okay, we got South Africa and you got Saudi Arabia, but before that you got WrestleMania. Tonight you got Madison Square Garden. Like, that's what always blows my mind, that these things that, we would think, okay, I got a trip to Saudi Arabia in a month. I got to start kind of getting my head around what I'm going to be doing. But there are so many things that you're going to be doing before that. Is that something you think about the day before? Okay, that's what I'm doing now. Let's go do this.
I try to get when we get our schedules or so, most of the booking, as far as the live events, we have a couple months, in advance, a quarter in advance. We know kind of where we're going. Hopefully, things are subject to change, obviously, with life and injuries and things like that. So you never know what the card could actually be, but you have a general idea of where you're going to be. But typically you don't worry about it until the week of. When I go home, say when I finish this loop, through the weekend and Monday, when I go home Tuesday, I'll chill out Tuesday, and then Wednesday, my wife will be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm getting this loop, ready. I'm looking at cars. I'm kind of getting an idea of the routing, and if there's a central point, if we're doing, 3 live events, is there a middle point to where I can stay in the same hotel for 2 to 3 nights? The little things, you got to
Just
kind
something to
of
keep
You have to do that
mentally-
yourself?
a little bit of due diligence. Yeah, man, I'm a jack of all trades. We wear a lot of different hats as entertainers in that ring. It's not all just trunks and hip tosses. There's a lot. We're travelers. That's the real work, is being a traveler.
But this is the crazy part of all that is so you're figuring out Wednesday what you're going to do. Thursday traveling, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday on the road, back home Tuesday. Literally Tuesday is the only time there's any peace where you're like, okay, I can kind of veg out for a second. You got a family, so it's not like you're just vegging out. You're sitting there.
Tuesdays are actually one of the roughest days because
Uh-huh.
that's a travel day. You know, that's a travel day. So you'll get home, you know, best case scenario, I'll get home 10, 11 in the morning. And as soon as I get home, you know, I have you know, two baby boys, you know what I mean? So they are very demanding. So whenever I go home, we always make fun of Heath Slater. He'd always say, you know, when I go home, I just hit that super dad button. You know what I mean? I'm tired, but I hit that super dad button, and I'm just father of the year. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what you have to do because like that, and that's one thing, you know, is I've always been taught especially in this business, when you're home, be home. You know what I mean? And obviously you have to do, you know, like with any job, you have to have some preparation. There's got to be a little bit of homework done, you know, to get everything lined up to have a smooth, you know, transition going back out onto the road. But I try to, you know, log in and be there, you know, whether I'm doing, you know, multiplication with my 10-year-old or, you know, trying to get my boys to learn how to share, you know, you have to be all in the situation that, you know, that's at hand.
What about like security and stuff when you go to places like South? Because there's some places that are just kind of dangerous for tourists, and you get concerned about that?
You know, we have a great security staff, you know what I mean? And that's one thing people, you know, don't realize and you might be able to see it a little more, you know, now that, you know, you come around for the events and stuff and you're working them. But there's a lot of stuff going on backstage, and there's so many different, you know, crew members, so many different employees that make this company work. And security is a huge part of that. And they run our schedule, you know what I mean? Like sometimes people think it's just, the wrestlers are the one. These guys, they rent cars and they make drives, and typically they have to wait till every talent is out of the building. Then they can get in their car and do their traveling as well. But it's very demanding, and there's a lot of times, you know, they'll do the same drive, you know, at that midnight shift drive, and then they have to be up, you know, on a Monday. You know, if they do that drive Sunday, they got to be up Monday at like 9:30, 10 in order to work security for Vince and the rest of the staff who are in a production meeting or whatever it is that they're doing at the building before the talent actually get there. So there's a lot that goes into it, and they're just, you know, another key example of just a strong link of the chain.
You know how great their security is? If you go back last year at WrestleMania, they did a thing with Gronk, and Gronk was jumping out of the crowd to interfere in a match, and not all the security knew about it. So security guard, as soon as Gronk steps over the barricade, a security guard just runs over to him and stops Gronk. And goes like, no way. And like people had to come and like say
she
no.
Punked, you know, no offense to Gronk, but she kind of punked him a little bit. And then
she did.
Her name's Lisa, and she's a total badass. You know what I mean? And
he wasn't going anywhere.
People weren't pissed at her for that.
What's that?
People weren't pissed at her for that, right? Because she didn't know.
She didn't know, and she's just doing her job. And you know what I mean? From our standpoint, and I think just in general, you would rather have somebody, you know, step up and you know come to your aid opposed to like, I think he's all right as they're watching, you know, them walk by to possibly attack you.
He's a celebrity. He's fine. Nope.
He'll figure it out. I think he's okay.
So obviously we all know we're dealing with entertainment, but we're dealing with entertainment from guys that can physically destroy one another if need be. When you're going on television and you're calling Brock Lesnar a bitch 2 weeks in a row on national television and saying Brock Lesnar's a bitch and that's why he's not here, is there any part of you that goes like, I hope that Brock is aware of what we're doing here and he doesn't take this out on me later?
You know, I think you know, it's all a part of storytelling. It's almost like that, you know, that scene in Braveheart when they're all lined up for battle and they got the blue paint on and, you know, they all look cool, but then eventually they send out the nobles to talk, and then William Wallace is like, you know, prancing around on his horse, and eventually he's about to take off, and he said, I'm going to pick a fight, you know what I mean? So eventually that's what this is all about. You know, that's the cool part of what we do is, you know, we can build, you know, this story through verbal confrontation, but at the end of the day, it has to come down to some sort of physicality. It's got to come down to that physical performance. But I've been in there with them, man. Nobody's taken more German. I think I have set the record for Germans at this point. I think Cena's a close second, but like I've been in a few different matches with Brock in a multi-man capacity, and then I've had the singles match, you know, at WrestleMania 31 in Santa Clara. But that's kind of what's cool about this. This is a lot of the times what we do, it's very cerebral. This is very simple.
Very simple.
Get ready to hurt and get ready to bring it right back. You know what I mean? Like,
And we talked about, I've talked to you before about your match from WrestleMania 31, about how I was there, and you could see, like, this is a sports entertainment pro wrestling match. But Roman gets in the ring with Brock Lesnar, and they start swinging at each other. And within 60 seconds of the match, there's already welts popping up on Roman's face. Like, they're really, Brock isn't pulling, he's not pulling punches.
Well, it's got to be harder because he's also coming he goes back and forth in UFC. So there's times where he's really trying to knock somebody's teeth out. And then there's times where he has to just do it a different way. So he probably hits harder than the other guys do.
And there was also, I can't remember which show it was, but recently he was fighting this big guy named Braun Strowman in a WWE match. But I guess he got pissed at some point in the match. And the clip's online, you can find it. He knees Braun Strowman in the head so hard. I mean, it's a UFC level hard knee to the head. And I'm like, oh my God, you forget, like, call pro wrestling what you will, but you still are getting in the ring in a physical confrontation with Brock Lesnar.
As our truth always says, we're not delivering the mail.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, my dad told me, this ain't ballet. When you come near this ring, it's about money and it's about this physicality, and you have to be able to hold up. And it's cool because that's what I like about WWE is we have so many different forms of tough guys. You know, everybody can legitimately look at Brock Lesnar and be like, that's a tough guy.
Right.
Not only the way he looks, but if you go back and you see what he's done throughout his life, the achievements, the opportunities and the different things that he's been able to do. But then we also have guys who run around in little sex pants, you know what I mean? And it's funny because, like, this is a story, but I don't know what I was, my character is more of a badass character,
right.
a bit of a stoic, more of a walker than a talker. And I'm sitting there, and Fandango's got his, dancer pants on and he's putting his oil, and I just look at him. And
Fandango actually came, Jim knows Fandango because he came in here when that whole thing was starting and he had Jim lotion him up.
I did lotion him up.
Yes. That's excellent because he
I
was
wish the mics had been on.
Yeah, he was in the training room, and I don't know why he does this, but he was rubbing Vicks Vapor Rub all over himself. And typically you put it on your chest or your neck to open up your, breathing passages. Sure. But he was putting on his shoulders, his stomach, everywhere. And I just look at him and I just popped. I laughed. I started laughing. He just goes, "Hey, Oos, it takes a tough guy to do this." And I was like, it all made sense. I was like, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
Like in different capacities, it takes a lot of tough guys and a lot of tough personalities to be able to handle this lifestyle and this crazy circus that we live in.
Have you had concussions?
I have been very lucky to protect myself and learn, through our developmental, and that is a huge key. I think to that success for me is, being able to learn the basics and how to protect yourself while taking these falls and doing the things that we do to make it exciting. I have experienced them through football and stuff like that.
Yeah, you played football for a while. Why did you stop playing? I'm sure I've asked you that before. My memory stinks.
Essentially, there's a bit of a story behind it. I'm not going to get too much into it, but at the end of the day, football was done with me. You know what I mean? That's the crazy thing about the sport is it can be done with you and still keep going. So that was like a huge eye opener for me. Like, it felt like it quit me almost. Like I wasn't done, but then it was done with me.
How old were you?
I was 22.
Oh, you were really young.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was coming out of college. I played at Georgia Tech. I was going through the whole process and everything. I signed a free agent deal with the Vikings, and just due to some medical things that set me back, I wasn't able to, compete for a job there, and they ended up cutting me. And I bounced around a little bit, and then I went up to Edmonton for the CFL and played for the Eskimos for a year. And it just wasn't the same. The passion wasn't there. I knew I still wanted to be like a man of influence, like somebody that you could say, oh yeah, he's a role model, or a superstar or of some sort. Somebody, you know what I mean, that is a bit of a household name. I felt like I had that in me, but at that time I just felt like I wasn't down the right road, and there was a life change that needed to happen, and I did that.
Is it hard, like, to get as psyched up when you're in the CFL? Because there are guys that go up there and make good careers, and then some of them get into the NFL. But is it harder to kind of feel psyched about playing football when it's a league, but it's not the NFL?
it's funny you say that because like that was one of the sayings, and I mean no disrespect to the CFL. I'm very grateful. They helped me feed my daughter for a year, and you know it gave me an opportunity to play another year and experience that and experience a a different part of the world. But they used to have this saying, it's not the league, it's a league. So which kind of sounds disrespectful, in a weird way. But the NFL is the NFL. It's a huge, it's a huge entertainment machine. You know what I mean? People look at it, a lot of different ways. But when it comes down to it, you can't deny the popularity. You can't deny, the attention that it draws. But it was a lot different. It's a lot different game up there. I was away from my family in a foreign city to me. So it just things weren't panning out. I wasn't playing as much as I thought I should, and I thought I was better than the guys that were in front of me. And like anything else, you either have to do what you got to do or get off the pot.
Don't you look back at it though, like kind of grateful though? Like things certainly worked out for you, and again, you probably avoided a lot of head trauma that those guys take, and you wind up going on to do this. So you got to be kind of.
I mean, this made you a household name for sure.
Yeah, I think everybody has a a path, and I respect everybody's path. That's why I don't ever judge people on what they've done. It's not about what you've done before all the time. It's what you're doing. And like the old, what have you done for me lately? You're only as good as your last performance, that type of situation. So I think it all worked out for me, and I'm very grateful. But, it's one of those situations, you just have to protect yourself, regardless of what kind of activity you're doing, what kind of, if you're doing an extreme sport, all the way to playing in an organized league of basketball, you have to protect yourself. You have to obviously know your techniques, and that's how you protect, I think, your health and things like you were saying in concussions. It's hopefully something that we're, eradicating every single day, and every year we're getting closer. But I think the key is to start in the youth leagues. The key is to start young, just like anything else. We start school young so we can start learning and experiencing and conditioning these ways. So hopefully these habits will, become stronger for our young athletes.
There was a guy who was doing, and I'm sure that was doing those jailhouse interviews trying to connect you to his steroid scandal. It turned out to be totally false, and it's been proven to be completely false. And a guy doing jailhouse interviews isn't exactly the most reputable source anyway. But when that starts to come out, obviously you didn't do anything, right? Are you able to tune stuff like that out and be like, well, I'm going to be fine because I didn't do this? Or do you start being like, fuck, like I don't need somebody messing with me right now. Like I don't need to be thinking about this.
I think it's a little bit of both, you know what I mean? Because, at one point it's like, who is this? Like,
right.
Where is this coming from? Like,
because you've never even heard of this
What did
guy.
I do? Yeah,
right.
It's like what the heck is going on? Like, I'm just sitting at home playing with my kids, feeding babies, changing diapers, and doing dad stuff. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden this happens. But I think it's just a good lesson of where we're at, and if you have any kind of media or social media presence, or essentially my Twitter is a billboard. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, some people want to use it, whether it's in a positive fashion or a negative. And
are people ever negative on Twitter?
No, not with me. You know what I mean? I have a pretty good history with just being liked in general, but yeah. But
especially the wrestling audiences.
But
right?
At the same time, it's one of those deals where I know what I know me. I know what I've done. I know what the truth is. So you got to have kind of a bulletproof mentality where it's like these little things are just ricocheting off of me.
What's the pressure when you're building up to this WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar? Is the pressure what's going to happen in the ring, or is the pressure like, look, I got to tell this story and convince a bunch of fans who think that they might not want to see this match why they want to see this match? Like, which part is the thing that you're like, okay, this is what's going to be work here?
The match is the match. And, it's one thing to speak about it when you're 4 weeks, 5 weeks out, but it's just going to be physical. You know what I mean? I'm not, if it isn't broke, don't break it. If you saw what we did, 3 years ago, you'll have a general idea of the way we go at it. I don't, see like we're not just going to give you orange. If those were apples we gave you, we're not going to just change the fruit. Like we're going to stay around the apples and do what works for us because we're both physical. That's what we do. We're both brawlers. We're both physical. We're not scared to bang. So if there's anything, I think the physicality, hopefully, along with a great story, which is important, you know what I mean, to grasp that attention, to get people, you know, to completely, you know, immerse themselves in it and get lost in it. But I think what you'll be able to take from it is that true, whoa.
Right.
Was that, wait. Did he just give him the 2-piece? Did he give him the Strowman 2-piece or what? He didn't even knock him out. Like, you know what I mean? That's where I like to, you know, stretch the imagination, make people guess. Like, what are we watching here? Is this MMA? Is this, you know, professional wrestling?
I
Is
think
this
these guys are really fighting. Do they really hate each other? Yeah.
If you can kind of blur that line, then I think we're doing our job.
How's Ronda doing?
You know, I've been busy with the other one, you know what I mean? So... but from what I've seen and the short hellos and, you know, the small talk, she's done good. You know, she's in a crazy situation where she's gonna have to learn very fast and kind of, you know, like myself and a few others, she's gonna learn kind of, you know, trial by error, kind of, you know, be thrown in the fire. So she may have moments where she does really good stuff, and there may be moments where she struggles, and you might see that. But as long as she's, you know, having fun and she's progressing, I think it's a positive for everybody having her around.
What's the hardest thing to adjust to coming into that world? Because it's different than MMA. Is it the stuff on the mic? Is it the holding back? Is it the inside the ring stuff? What's the hardest thing for someone from that world to adjust to when they come over?
As far as from MMA,
the hardest thing to learn, do you think, when you're coming out of that background into what you're doing?
I think there's a lot of different things as far as, you know, entertainment. Like if you go into the nuances of being a character and stuff like that, but the main thing is the travel. Is, you know, as far as, and I don't know their schedule and the way they run, you know, their regiment, but it seems like in the MMA, a lot of them are in the same, they train in the same places. They have their camps, you know what I mean? So we don't have a camp, you know. Our camp is a new town, you know what I mean. My camp tonight is in the Garden, you know. And then the next night it's in Tulsa, you know what I'm saying. So you're just constantly moving, you know what I mean. If she has a family, a husband, kids, she's not going to see them as much. There's a bunch of sacrifices that have to be made, and that's the real work behind what we do.
So you probably stayed traveling. You stay in all these little shit hotels for a long time until you're well established. I'm obsessed with bed bugs. Did you ever get bed bugs when you're on the road? Terrifies me.
Yeah, I don't stay in the crappy hotels myself, but I learned from an early standpoint that if you're gonna it's funny because. My wife and one of the Usos' wives were like, you know what I mean? You'll spend $500 on a bar tab or something or a meal, but you don't want to pay over $100 for a hotel. Like, what? Why don't? That doesn't make any sense. So for me, I take it as take care of yourself. You know, get yourself a good place. Get you some, you know, a place you can trust, a good, comfortable bed. You know, somewhere that's safe because, like you said, it essentially becomes your home. You know what I mean, for a night. And there's as a world traveler and a performer, someone who's always on the road, there's a weird attachment that you can have with a hotel. It becomes like your apartment essentially. So you definitely want to take care of yourself in that regard for sure.
That's very different from Mick Foley's philosophy of sleeping on fans' couches while he was the champion.
Mick Foley would literally sleep on a railroad spike if it saved him $30.
Nobody saved money like him. I think Owen used to do the same. Like he would just have like a Rolodex of fans that he knew over the years, and he would just stay with them. But I heard Mick Foley would before he'd be the main event. You know what I mean? Working Rock or whoever he was working with at the time. He would finish up, he'd literally get a huge thing of popcorn, and he would just drive to the next town, and he'd just eat the popcorn, and that would be dinner for him sometimes.
There wouldn't be any stopping on the road?
Well, typically, especially when you're in the main. Like, you're not getting out of the building until about 10:30, 11. By the time you do your 3-hour drive, everything is closed.
That's weird. How do you keep that body?
A lot of hard work. I mean, you know, to be able to drive and then do the reach, you know what I mean? Like that's some sort of calisthenic right there.
I think so. What's it like to, at this point, to be doing for Vince to be doing TV with him. Like, you know, he doesn't really perform on television anymore, but he was on Raw this week, and it made it, you know, a huge deal. That first segment was a big deal. What's it like to perform with him now?
It's neat, you know what I mean, because we've gone on a transition over the years, you know, throughout, you know, our relationship, you know, on screen and off. So it's always cool to see him around, to see him where he's not just behind the scenes, you know, where I don't have to, you know, kick down the fourth wall and go find him, you know what I mean? So anytime he's involved, I think it's cool, and you can see that chain reaction, that leadership, you know what I mean, when he's out, you know, by the ring, or if he's involved in, you know, helping a certain segment, or if you can tell he's super attached to something, and you can see that passion and that drive of creativity that he still has, you know, to be able to do it as long as he has, and to see as much as he has, to still have that level of passion. It's incredible.
So you were talking about, you just said, you know, the transition and the ups and downs or whatever of the relationship. Do you think it's unfair that some people, you went on Raw this week and the promo was about how Brock Lesnar is Vince McMahon's boy, and that's why he doesn't have to do the things that everybody else has to do. And there were people online that took umbrage with it because they were like, well, we all know that Roman Reigns is Vince's boy and he shouldn't be saying that, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that that's a fair summation of your relationship with Vince?
All right. So whether you're somebody who's been in a situation like me, or you're somebody who is new or has been around for a long time and hasn't quite gotten the push that everyone thinks they deserve, the bottom line is we're all Vince's boys. When it comes down to it, what we do for him and this company, he has a huge respect for that. You couldn't be him and be involved in this business and run it the way he has if you didn't have the ultimate respect for your performance, for your talent. What we like to call, we're called the natural resource of our business. You know what I mean? You can't, you know, no offense to any crew guys, but you can find lighting and, you know, sound guys, you know, a lot of different places, but to find crazy people that'll do what we do, it's not likely. So that's one of those situations where I think everybody, you know, is Vince's boy. Everybody should have that relationship. Are we all equal in that regard? No, but to his point, has Brock done a lot of stuff? Absolutely. But when you're in that situation, I think it's just a matter of pride. It's a matter of, you know, how you view yourself. What do you see in the mirror? How are you trying to leave, you know, a place that you conduct your business that hopefully you want to see grow and be better when you leave? And that's the mindset I have. So when I don't see that in, you know, a fellow talent or a peer, it pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.